A new federal program gives Americans the opportunity to order 4 free COVID rapid tests per household. So it's only a matter of time until American teens start flushing them down the toilet for some YouTube challenge.
British authorities have denied Prince Harry police protection if his family visits the UK. Only because he's been living in the US, so they just assume he has his own collection of guns.
Former President Donald Trump abruptly ended an interview with NPR after he was pressed about his false claims that the 2020 election was rigged. Things got so heated, the NPR host raised his voice to a slightly louder whisper.
A city in California plans to use green lasers to stop an invasion of crows. It was decided on by the city's governing board of house cats.
And finally, Mattel is releasing a new Barbie to honor civil rights journalist and activist Ida B. Wells. They're just trying to decide whether to pair her with rollerblades or a skateboard. Welcome to the first Biden time of 2022. As always, I am Christian Bladt, alongside Tamra. I don't know what
Who?
last name. I don't
I'm
know.
sorry.
I think I must have been thinking of the Thomas Crown affair because you were going to be
It's
Tamra
always
Crown.
I know that's always at the tip
Yeah,
of your tongue.
and only the Pierce Brosnan remake, not the original.
That and the Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah, well, those are the two movies we talk about every episode. And Tamra Brown, fellow mirth maker, thank you for providing the funny as usual. And with us for the first time on this show is Nate Miller. Nate, thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've been bugging you for a while to have me on. So
I know. I usually just want to talk to you about stuff like the new Moon Knight trailer and
I know,
the latest Marvel movie.
Normally, when we're talking about Marvel stuff, I want to talk to you about politics. So this way, it'll work out. It'll balance out.
This is the 1 hour a week I let myself think about politics, and then the rest of the time I put my head back in the sand. It's a lot more fun. Although, interesting little anecdote to share with both of you and our audience at home, which of course, as always, includes our great friend, Storage Yard Resident. Great to see you. Happy 2022, sir. Glad to see you. And let us know if we say anything during the hour that you do agree with, because that's always interesting. But we love the loyalty and dedication of Storage Yard Resident. So we did take a little time off for this show. Part of the reason was that I looked at my schedule. I was going to be in New York. I was going to be very, very busy. So I was just like, yeah, we'll just do it when I come back. And I had 10 days planned in New York and New Jersey. Yeah, jealous. And I left from Burbank Airport a couple Thursdays ago, January 6th, and I had a connecting flight in Phoenix. So when I touched down in Phoenix, I got a series of very frantic texts from my wife. The first was that her mom tested positive for COVID. Then my son tested positive for COVID.
Oh, no.
And then my daughter tested positive for COVID. So I did not go on to Newark, New Jersey. I drove home 6 hours from Phoenix.
Wow. That was very responsible of you.
Yeah, I know. What I really should have done was burn my mask mid-flight and been like, what do you all want to do about it? And, at least before I left Phoenix. Yeah, at least before I left Phoenix, I got some Waffle House to go because, look, hashtag priorities. I had to get something out of that trip. And so that turned out to be basically today was the first day my kids went back to school.
So did you get tested?
I did. I got tested and I was negative, and then I got tested again, and then I was positive, and then I got tested again, and then I was negative. But my daughter is 4, and she is the only one of us who's not vaccinated, partially because she's only 4, but also because she's a big Joe Rogan fan. So, I think that she has plenty of
I follow her Twitter, Christian.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, there's crazy stuff on there. No, so and look, my personal anecdotal evidence is the 3 of us in the household who were vaccinated had very mild symptoms. My son actually never had any symptoms. And my daughter had a mild fever a couple of days, never went above 101. So as things go, it could have been a lot worse. And, it's the interesting light that this shone on for us was my son's school district weren't that worried. Whereas I feel like if this had been last fall, they would have, told all the other kids to stay home. And it's just like, okay, well, he doesn't have symptoms, and he's vaccinated. Squeezed his second shot in right after Christmas. Happy Boxing Day. Enjoy the injection, because that's exactly what happened. So yeah, and they I think would have taken him back like 5 days after he first tested positive, because he didn't. And I was just like, well, let's just see how everything's going, and this is the crazy thing. And Nate, I've seen some of the stuff that you've posted recently with regards to the CDC changing some of these rules, and literally the school district and my daughter's private school, they both said, and you can go ahead and do those rapid tests because the PCR tests are too sensitive. And I'm like, wait, isn't that the point? Shouldn't you want to take the one that's more sensitive and more likely to catch it?
Oh no.
Yeah.
And
well, I know what they mean by that, though.
Yeah.
No, I do too. And in all honesty, I also, my wife was literally just telling me about somebody she had a Zoom meeting with this morning, and they've like tested positive like 7 times, even though they're not really sick. And I think that some people, it can linger for a while, so that the rapid test might not catch it. But it was crazy. And it was, I would say it was really only like by the time that my daughter tested positive, she didn't have the fever anymore. And we did the responsible thing. We got them tested before they went back to school at the beginning of the new year. And they, of course, tested negative, or they wouldn't come back to school. And then my daughter had a little bit of a fever on Tuesday. So we're like, great, well, she's going to stay home. We kept my son home too. They both tested negative. We kept my daughter home, sent my son back to school on that Wednesday. And then I'm like, oh, free and clear. I'm going to have fun in the snow and the cold of the East Coast. And that's not quite what happened. But anyway, so it's interesting. And I bring it up as an anecdote to share with people that are watching, because I think it really highlights that I consider myself as someone who's been fairly responsible, but to the extent that I didn't stay home all the time. We took the kids to Legoland for New Year's. We went to Santa's Village out in Lake Arrowhead before. We'll go to things, and we know, we're fairly sure we know how we caught it. It was a family member who never gets sick, who thought that they just had a cold, and that was unfortunate. But neither here nor there, because I think you can catch it kind of anywhere. And that's the thing, sort of, it's like it all followed what the narrative is about Omicron, that it's very easy to catch and it can be very mild. And so I hope that anyone, whether they're vaccinated or not, if they catch it, if your household handles it the way mine did, I think it's easy to come out the other side. So so I was definitely not doing this show last week. It was very, very challenging. This is the time where I wished I had a sprawling estate and not a townhouse in Burbank. But in any case, now we had a joke at the top of the show about how everybody can get 4 free COVID tests, and we had a bunch of them. And the reason that my kids were able to be tested, though, that day was that my son's school district had sent home 2 rapid tests. So that was, they're not as easy to come by. The appointments can be very difficult to find. And at the end of the day, being vaccinated, wearing your mask, and trying to, be smart, you can still catch it. It's just what you sort of do after you find out you've got it. And I think that's where the responsibility part comes in. But Nate, I wanted to let you jump in first, sort of about the sort of these this sliding scale from the CDC in terms of, I think we all remember it used to be 14 days was what it took to get out of your system. 10 seemed kind of reasonable, and then it was like, yeah, how about 5? How about a third as many days as we used to say is what it takes?
Yeah, I mean, it's I remember being on Twitter when the announcement came out, and just the kind of like disbelief from a lot of people of this like 5 days, and then if you're not showing any symptoms, just go back to work thing. I don't know anybody who doesn't see that as they just want us to go back to work regardless of whether we're sick or not kind of thing. And it's frustrating after spending the last year, 2 years defending the CDC and trying to get people to be like, yes, listen to them, listen to the science, listen to the masks, right? Now they put this statement out where the science that they released doesn't even back up that decision. It just so happens to come a few days after the Delta CEO has a talk with them and says, hey, maybe you should do 5 days. And then a few days later, they announce, oh, hey, it's 5 days. I mean, I don't want to put my conspiracy hat on, but yeah. So, especially working in the restaurant industry and like being one of those frontline workers, we saw the decline early December with Omicron start to spread, and it has only gotten worse. I know I know more people that are sick with COVID within the last 4 weeks than I have all of the other time that we've been in COVID. Like, it's worse now than it has been ever before. And I think because the narrative is that it's so mild, people are less afraid of it, which, I mean, you shouldn't necessarily be terrified of it, but we should still be taking actions to minimize the spread. Someone in the chat said, like, the pandemic or not, if you're sick, you stay home, and the problem is paycheck to paycheck, and that is the kind of conflicting ideas that we see here as all along the Biden's campaign. He was talking about, we need pandemic assistance. We need to be sending masks out. This is the stuff that we need to do in order to take care of people. All of a sudden, now that he's here, he's bounced around from, there's nothing we can do, to like, Google will show you where some tests are, to like, okay, now we're going to send everyone in one household for tests. Well, I live in an apartment with roommates, and I ordered my tests. So now that I ordered my tests, they cannot order their own tests. So I have to now, we have to divide up 4 tests between the 3 of us, which is
what you mean to say, Nate, is you have to decide how much you want to charge them for their tests. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very odd looking at how quickly we went from rapid tests being available at every Rite Aid, Walgreens, wherever near you, to now like they're constantly out of stock. You have to get them right when they restock. I will say, I'm not exactly sure who has been doing it, but there is a lot of free COVID testing that's been popping up, at least near the areas where I live, which is great. But even then, the lines are always significantly long. There's a wait for that, and not everybody has the ability to take that chunk out of their day to go there and get their test done, and then still go to work or whatever they have to do. So I think overall it's frustrating. It unfortunately for me, does reduce my trust in the CDC. It doesn't look good for our establishment and like the general people's faith in that. I'm feeling very uncertain about the future with COVID, because even as the variants get quote unquote lighter and are more spreadable, I don't know, like the way that we are reacting to this is just not good. We have a lot of people still dying. Our health network is completely overloaded. Like, a lot of people don't think about, even if you get COVID and you don't die, even if you go to the doctor, the amount of people that are going to the doctor just to get checked, just for sure, just to be on the safe side, that's taking away from everybody else that has a broken bone, that has a heart attack, that has, whatever. And our health care system is already very stressed and tenuous.
Needs a little nip and tuck. Let's not neglect.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's how I feel about all of that stuff.
Yeah, I've actually had to push back my eyebrow lift for another month, and
that's a shame. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, you know how much I need it, Tamra. You've gotten used to.
Crucial.
Yeah, but Tamra, what are your thoughts? Sort of, where we're at. I think that I agree with what you said, Nate. When I think back in 2020, I knew like 2 people who had it. Most of all of them, both of them were in New York. They got it right away, like April 2020. and then I didn't really know anybody who had it for a long time. And then it was like everybody either has it or at least is like known someone who has it. And, you know, it's just
I,
like social media posts are a lot of like, oh, well, I guess I'm staying home for 2 weeks or, you
I do
know.
want to say too, one thing I have absolutely noticed is I don't have it, to be honest, like this is not because I refuse to be friends with unvaccinated people, but I don't have any friends or anybody I know really that's unvaccinated. All of my friends that have not got their booster and got COVID had much worse symptoms than my friends who did get their booster and then got COVID. So
Yeah, that's a
again,
good point.
anecdotal evidence, but
No,
I
and
I
I've
am
go
I
ahead.
haven't tested positive yet, and I'm pretty sure that I have just had it, and because of, whenever I was vaccinated, I didn't get any symptoms, and so I just didn't think to test at that time. We've had a couple outbreaks at my store, and I've tested then and come back negative. But in my view, there's no way I haven't had it by now, especially working in a restaurant where you have,
Sure.
there's a high transmission rate. Everyone's taking off their masks as soon as they sit down, all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, no, no, and I think that what I found is that depends on where you live. As to there are people that I'm obviously amongst the elderly. In less than a month, I'll be 46. But there are people in my age group that, depending on where they live, they haven't qualified for a booster yet. But here in California, I think I got mine back in like November. So yeah, I think that that's part of the problem. But yeah, I know very few people who are unvaccinated. Well, over the age of 5, I guess. Through association, I know a bunch of 4-year-olds that
Right.
are not. But anyway, Tamra, your thoughts sort of on where we are. And, I think a lot of people have started to just throw their hands up and be like, all right, so what? Everybody's just going to get it now. And if you're vaxxed, you cross your fingers and you hope that it doesn't go, it doesn't go badly.
Yeah. Same like Nate said, and you too, is that I have known more people now than who have gotten sick than throughout the rest of the pandemic. But that is also because of the fact that I work for a homeless services provider,
Right.
and at our interim housing site we had an outbreak, and so the site was on quarantine, and this was at Christmas, and during the quarantine and just in general working for this provider, I get tested about every other day. I have never once tested positive, so I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty confident for I think a while in 2020 I was saying what Nate's saying, was like maybe I've had it and I just had no idea. But then I have since had when you give blood you get an antigen test, and so that was about 7 months ago was the last time I did that, and since then I've been testing very frequently, so I'm pretty confident I still haven't had it. So because my site was on quarantine and people tested positive, I definitely was surrounded by it. There's no, I do believe that, like you were saying with the boosters, that does, they say that the evidence is kind of unclear on, like if you're vaccinated, if you're boosted, like, does that help in your ability to catch it? Like, does that slow the spread? Like obviously if you catch it, your symptoms will be more mild. It definitely decreases the likelihood that you'll end up in a hospital and end up dying, for sure. But does it decrease the transmission of it? And just from personal experience, I suspect that it does, just because of who I have seen catch it when they, some families stay completely isolated.
Yeah.
And they caught it, and I was just absolutely shocked, because I was like, how you don't talk to anybody? And meanwhile, I'm
but then they to interrupt, then they probably have 5G on their phones, right? That's probably how they got it. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to I just figured the most likely scenario. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but meanwhile, none of the staff tested positive, even though we are the ones like in the line of fire. But anyway, so yes, I have been sort of immersed in the world of COVID testing, and in fact, I have to go later today to get another PCR test. And also one of the families who tested positive around Christmas, the kids are still, even though it's been weeks now, the kids are still testing positive, because of the fact that like some people, it's not still in their system, but it has something to do with the antigens That's what I said when you said that they say that the PCR tests are a little too sensitive. That's what I said. I said I know what you mean by
Right,
that,
sure.
because at this point the school district for this one particular family is recommending just the rapid test, because of the fact that even though the rapid test isn't reliable for detecting whether you've caught it, but the PCR test can be too sensitive after you've already had it, showing that you might still have it when you no longer are um,
Contagious.
contagious. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that sort of you're talking sort of, this is a family that is dealing with they're part of they're you're seeing them through an organization that helps the homeless. So obviously these are kids who I'm just going to assume they will be better off when they can go back to school. And if they're testing positive for this many weeks, I am certainly not a doctor of any kind, but I would assume that they're not going to get anyone else sick at this point. So getting them to a point where they can go back to school is very important. And I do understand what my son's school was trying to do, but just sort of, it was very shocking to hear on the other end of the phone. It's like,
Yeah.
Take one of those less reliable tests. That's what we really need to do. So yeah, I think that I don't know. It's very hard to get a handle on it, and I think that we had a pretty good feeling in general that I mean, everybody knew that Fauci always comes along and is the buzzkill and is like, it's not all better yet. Like, shut up. We want to go to we want to go to barbecues and things.
Yeah, I mean, and that being the case, like as far as like what people are just like what the CDC relaxing the rules and stuff like that, and some people are like, okay, then we're just fucked, I guess. Like our government is telling us to just like prioritize our capitalist society over the general health, and I mean, yes, I agree with that, but at the same time, I've become not even just recently, but just been in the camp of just like, it is what it is. We are living in it's not a pandemic, it's an endemic now. This is just the new normal. We're going to be wearing masks from now on. I'm used to it. I'm still going, I, like you said, Christian, I'm actually going to Disneyland on Thursday.
Nice.
I still go, I'm going out, I'm doing things, I'm as safe as I can to still, like be amongst the public. Sure. Always wear my mask, indoors and even outdoors if I'm around other people outdoors. But like I still take all the precautions, but like I'm just like, this is just, yeah. If you're one of the people that is just like, I'm staying in my home, I'm still not, I'm making sure that I'm doing my thing, and I'm like, I really respect that.
But you're like even talking about how there's no guarantee that those people won't get sick.
Well,
it's like even if you get your groceries delivered, you don't even go to the supermarket. Right. There's still somebody that has to leave those groceries on your front step. So there's always something that can happen. And I'm sorry, what were you going to say? I think I talked over you.
Well, I was just going to say, like what I was saying with those families that were isolated is that the ones, and this is just my own suspicion, this is not what the CDC is saying, but like I had just noticed that like the ones that I was like, how did they possibly get it? Well, they weren't boosted. So
that's fair. Yeah. Well, that's definitely interesting. And, we're seeing that there's a lot happening in terms of the positivity rate. I guess the hospitals you're seeing are very crowded, but it's that part seems to be on the decline. And when it comes to Omicron, I think it lives up to the example that the sequel is never as strong as the original. And this is like the fourth one. Really, this is kind of like the fifth one. So this is like Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach. So who's really going to get hurt by Assignment Miami Beach? That's really the way that I look at it.
This is more of like a new hip fresh reboot that has been updated for 2022.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's the Police Academy reboot that's just called Academy.
Right. No numbers.
No numbers. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and I think that I will say that for Storage Yard residents' sake, I will often say that President Trump former President Trump was dealt a terrible hand in terms of an unexpected pandemic. Even for people that said it was coming in early 2020, it was still unexpected, prior to that. And President Biden also, I think, felt like, all right, yeah, we'll be able to get a handle on this thing. And then I don't think that the expectation was a year in, more people were going to have it than before, whether it's more mild and all of that. And I think that the testing, getting people masks, and trying to, the key is if you're sick, don't go anywhere. That's really what it is. And hopefully we get to a point where it is much more livable. I mean, for me, I had very minor symptoms, and it was the level of sick where if this were 2018, I would have gone to work. It wasn't even like, it didn't even feel like a tenth of like strep throat, so I was just like, I don't know, but I know that for other people it can be very serious. You see things in the media that can be surprising. The ESPN commentator Stephen A. Smith, he's vaccinated and boosted, and he said he had it really bad, and he was wondering if, for a few weeks there, he was wondering if he was going to live. So you always have those exceptions. There's a couple of people that I know from our time at AfterBuzz who got it and were boosted and got it bad. I mean, they were never fearful for their life. So it really just, people react differently to it, and you can only do so much. And I think that the Biden administration just gives off the impression that they're doing too little, but they're giving everybody tests. That's something
well,
new.
They're giving everybody tests now. We're 2 years into this pandemic, and now we are getting 4 tests, which will come in approximately 2 weeks. We don't know when we'll get more tests. It's only 4 per household, which is like address.
Yeah.
I think you're shooting heavy bail in including that as a positive. The big issue with Biden's reaction is that he went so hard at Trump for how bad he handled it, and said all of these great ideas for what he would do, and then he got in and did none of them. And that's why he's getting hit so hard. He's done some good things, but compared to what he said he would do and how badly he came after Trump for what Trump did, you can't do both. You can't do that, and then once you get in the job, be like, all right, cool, I'm kicking my feet up. There's not much that we can do federally. He literally said that. That's insane.
Yeah, no. I know. And that ties into the fact that Biden is at an all-time low for a president, 33%, which sometimes, like when you hear the polling for Congress and it's 19%, you're like, that seems a little high for Congress. It seems very low. And, obviously there's it's very hard to get any sort of agenda going when you have the razor thin or non-existent margin that Democrats have in Washington right now. And, they've only really got a few months left to really try and get anything done. And it's very hard to point to, it's a lot of like, well, we tried to do these things, and a lot of presidents can say that. It's like, yeah, but the other party got in our way. There's not a lot to highlight in terms of actual, concrete accomplishments, things that you can feel like are done. And we're just 2 days away from 1 year since President Biden was sworn in. And Tamra, how are you feeling generally? I mean, you can compare him to the previous president if you would like, but also on the merits of his 1 year in office. How are you feeling?
Well,
about,
I mean, I'm
President
uninspired.
Biden?
I'm uninspired. And not that I was inspired when I voted for him, but I'm definitely uninspired now. And I think that's the problem. And well, real quick, I would like to ask Storage Yard resident just his opinion on how is Trump being perceived among his party for making his statements promoting boosters and saying that politicians who hide their vaccination status are gutless. I'm just curious.
No, yeah, it's a great question. Yeah,
how the Republican Party is reacting to that. But anyway, yes. So when you look at the last 50 years, the polling of presidents over the last 50 years, Biden is almost at the lowest. He's not quite yet at the polling, the at Trump's disapproval rating, but he's almost there, and he probably will get there, I'm guessing. But just the fact that Trump and Biden both have polled so much lower than the last presidents of the past 50 years, I mean, I think that just shows how frustrated Americans are with politics in general, and that's because like there is just it's so hard for anyone to have allegiance to their party anymore, just because everything is each party is divided in their own right. And I've said for a while now that I feel like Biden's biggest problem is that he's trying so hard to be moderate and toe this like centrist line of which just appeases nobody. So it only makes sense that he's polling so poorly, because they're pulling out of Afghanistan was a poor decision. I think most people agree on that. The inflation issues, I don't think are his particular fault. It's the swing of the way economies go when new parties take office. But
also a global pandemic,
in a global pandemic, and he's receiving the ire over that. And then also just any I just lost my train of thought for a second. But anyway, so like it only makes sense that he's polling so low. I do, like I said, just towing that centrist line of I'm trying to do the moderate thing that appeases the most people, and it's like, but well, then you're just appeasing nobody. So that's why.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's one of those old sayings, is that when you try and please everybody, you're going to end up pleasing nobody. And yeah, I don't think that Biden is ever going to, if anyone owns a red hat, he's probably not going to win them over. So he probably shouldn't try. Nate, as you take stock of a year of the Biden administration, are there things that stand out to you as the most disappointing? I mean, we talked about promises that were made for handling the pandemic, but sort of beyond that, are there things that you thought you might get, or is it really like, no, this is pretty much what I expected from the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I mean, I had exceedingly low expectations for the Democratic Party, specifically Biden, and I mean, I'm disappointed. Not that I had high expectations, but somehow I'm still disappointed. I think specifically the biggest thing for me is just how limp of a president he has been. Like he has not made any great speeches. He hasn't made very many appearances or a lot of press conferences. When he does, it's like a flip of a coin of like, is he going to be awake or is he going to be asleep? And his just overall ineffectiveness in applying pressure to Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, and like, yes, it's a razor thin majority that they have, and it's not necessarily easy, but they are not doing everything that they can to get things done. And he is, in my opinion, totally consciously allowing Joe Manchin to be the bad guy in order so he can say, "Oh, look, guys, I can't do anything," And there's plenty of things that are even within his federal executive power that he could do, like regarding debt and stuff like that, that he is not doing. So I did not expect much from him, and I'm still kind of disappointed, but more so I'm disappointed because I know that this is going to lead to another Republican president and another Republican, Senate and House majority. And I know that we are going to just swing further right than Trump. And I it's just frustrating to see that, like, we're kind of forced into the situation of voting for this old dude, because the other old dude we had is like really bad. But this new old dude that we had is so bad that he actually makes the old dude who kind of everybody agreed was bad not seem as bad. Like, it's just like real. It's like, is this all some grand psyop to make the Republicans look better and just destroy the Democratic Party? I don't understand. Like, it just brings so much frustration, and I'm very morose about the future and the next couple elections, because like, yeah, it's just a very bad start to his first year. And already, yes, the COVID stuff is a lot of outside of his control, but I don't think that he has taken as much initiative as he should have And I think that that's where a lot of the disapproval comes from, is that his whole thing of like build build back better, whatever, all that
Yep.
stuff, right? Like, and like none of that has happened. And instead he just kind of comes on and he's like, don't worry, Jack, everything's good. And then people ask him questions and he goes, thank you. And then he just walks away. And it's like, all right, that's our president.
Yeah.
It's like a joke at this point. So,
But I don't think that I do think I do think the Senate and House will swing Republican
Sure.
this election year, but I'm not confident yet that a Republican is going to overtake the White House in 2024 because of the fact that, and I really don't know what will happen, but I don't think it's necessarily that I would see a Republican moving in because of the fact that Trump is not going to be reelected and they don't have anybody else, nor does the Democrats. The Democratic Party doesn't have anyone. There are no stars taking stage right now. And there's nobody that is like the inspiring, charismatic figure for either party. So I don't know what it's going to happen, but I really don't think that it's necessarily going. I think at this point it's anybody's race, because even though I don't know if we're going to talk about this polling that shows that the Republican Party is gaining.
No, we can certainly.
But I don't.
That. Yeah.
I think that over that's like a poll that's coming from a Gallup poll that was monitoring like the last year, but in the grand scheme, the Republican Party is losing. I mean, they have been shrinking.
But even so, let me just throw in what that poll is that it says 47% of Americans consider themselves Republican. So it's still 42% are Democrats. It's not actually that far off. It's, it's right outside what they usually consider the margin of error, which is plus or minus 4. So it's still pretty close to 50-50. It's clearly in favor of Republicans.
And I think that's just solely due to the fact that because so many independents voted for Biden.
Yeah.
And, once that party president is in office, those independents usually swing back the other way. I think that's all that is. It's not that the Republican Party is gaining strength. I don't think that that's true at all.
Well, I think that what both parties feel confident in, Nate, is that if you didn't like the two old white dudes from last year, that there will be two other older, whiter dudes coming down the pike. So
yeah,
we'll find them soon.
Well, I want to say, like, I admire your optimism, but from where I am sitting, I see it very likely that Trump wins again, because even though he has turned off some of his base and a lot of the traditional Tea Party people don't like him anymore, he is still such a powerful figure, and the Republicans have demonstrated time and time again that even when they don't like each other and they don't support each other, they will still unify to get Republican interests done. And the issue that we have seen the Democrats have for years is constant infighting and constantly not being able to agree on things, and then you get centrists elected that don't want to do anything as not to piss anybody off, and nothing gets done. So I would like to think that it's on an even footing, but even if Trump doesn't run, DeSantis is talking about running. I think there are lots of figures, and also the way that Republicans what's the word? Look at their politicians as icons. I think it would be a lot easier for them to find someone who polls well and just feed into them and run them. Whereas for the Democrats, there's always like, well, this guy doesn't support this, but he supports this. And this guy is this, but he's not this. And she's this, and she's not that. And there's always this infighting, especially with them talking about possibly running Hillary again. I
don't think.
Yeah, but
as soon as that started, I knew Christian was like, "Oh."
No, I was gonna say Tamra will remember that I was convinced until deep into 2020 that she was still going to jump back in because she was going to save the day.
I will say right now, she's not running. I'm putting money on it. She's
this
not
time,
running.
Look, I think that there's somewhere in her she still wants it. I think she would still like to, but I think that she knows that moment.
That it would.
Because
she knows.
Who else are they going to run? Biden's too old. Kamala is not
just
doing
not
good.
popular. Yeah.
No. Yeah. No.
Who else are they
And
gonna
look,
run?
I
They're not
think,
gonna run Bernie.
yeah, no, I think that the issue is less about Trump running and winning. I feel what I do agree with Nate is that I feel it's very easy to see a Republican winning. And I think, DeSantis and Trump do both bring a lot of baggage, as they say. And I think that there's popularity problems with both of them. But I do think you're right that Trump still has a very loyal, energetic base. It is smaller than it was, but Storage Yard resident a while ago wanted us to know that he had his quote, a great rally last Saturday in Florence, Arizona. And Tamra, he did respond to your question. At that Florence rally, President Trump was very careful what he said about the vaccine so as to not turn off his followers.
So they're
it,
just so they're just ignoring. So his followers
Yeah.
are just ignoring what he's
I,
saying about
I
boosters and
think
getting
so.
vaccinated.
I mean,
Duh.
there was a clip months and months ago, pretty early into last year, where he talked about the vaccine and people started to boo. So he even backpedaled. He's like, "I got it, but it's up to you if you don't want to." I mean, it should be the crowning achievement of his time as president. You can agree with how much he played a part in it, but he's able to say, "Yeah, that vaccine." Yeah, that was because I was president. And did you hear of Operation Warp Speed? That's me.
Yeah, that
It's
was
not
so
George
good with
Takei.
Candace Owens. His
Yeah.
ego will not allow him to move on from that point and say the vaccines are bad, because to him, he personally made the vaccines and
Yeah.
saved the world. So everyone
Yeah.
needs to know and take the vaccine.
Right, exactly. And by the way,
I do
David
want to
House
say,
has a comment that I just wanted to drag in here, which is I'm praying both parties start over with new candidates. I think that there are a lot of people in both of those parties that very much want neither Biden nor Trump to appear on our ballots in 2024. And I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Nate?
well, I was just gonna. I mean that I was gonna say that I think another reason why I would bet that a Republican's gonna win the White House next election is because from what I have seen, a lot of these younger Gen Zs that are super leftist, whatever, especially after this election of them going, okay, we'll vote for Trump or vote for Biden because we have to get Trump out, right? Then Biden has come in and they see what he has done, what's changed, what hasn't changed. I think a lot, especially 2 more years from now, I think we're gonna have a lot of young disenfranchised voters who are just not going to vote for the Democratic Party. They may not necessarily vote Republican, they may not vote at all. And I think that even though a lot of Republicans are disenfranchised with some of the leaders and some of the people that they put up, again, I think that at the end of the day, they're going to vote down the ticket Republican, regardless of who it is.
Well, I mean, but on that same vein, well, first of all, I do think that Gen Z is far more active than any previous generation as far as doing their civic duty. I do have faith in them, so I do feel like even if they are not eager, I mean, gung ho behind a candidate, they still will just do their due diligence. I do believe that. And then also too, because of so many Republicans who, believe that the election was rigged, don't believe that their vote's going to count anyway. So, and the loss of the amount of Americans that are no longer with us, I do think those affect the Republican Party more than the Democratic Party. So, I don't know. That's
No, I mean
a good point.
the turnout is very difficult to predict because you do have, you have to, you can argue that one of the reasons that Trump lost was because of this idea of we have to go vote in person. You can't waste your time with those mail-in ballots. But then, some people just forget what day election day is. Some people don't
Trump
care.
lost because of COVID. We would have got 4 more years with Trump if we didn't have COVID.
I mean, doing the earlier incarnation of this show, I didn't see any way that anybody on that stage, when there were 11 possible candidates for Democrats, it was like none of them will ever be president. COVID
So, I mean,
really
we'll
was
see.
the main thing.
Who knows what's going to happen in the next 2 years?
Yeah,
too.
sure.
So.
Yeah, COVID 22. I mean, it's no more variants. Let's just they'll just be a new one now. Farad Mohammed in the chat with a great point. There's no one on either party that's a galvanizing force or younger than 70. 2024 could be the race where a dark horse candidate could take it all. Farad, is this you announcing your candidacy? Because I will vote, and because I know you live in Chicago, I'm sure you can probably get about 1 billion votes if you talk to the right people. So
I would personally think that who could galvanize people at this point is some pseudo celebrity, somebody that has I could see, but somebody that's a little bit more of a leftist that has sort of the Trump
Dwayne the Rock
background.
Johnson.
Somebody like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like some more, leftist. Who's the Joe Rogan of the left, or
there isn't one. That's the
yeah.
thing.
I mean, that's the problem. But like,
I think we're more likely to have Joe Rogan as a president if we're going dark horse, because people that lean to the right, there's when you lean to the left or you even associate with the left, you have everybody that's left of you critiquing every single thing you do. Is it ethical? Is it anti-capitalist? Yada 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 yada. On the right, it's different. We pick and choose what we want to pay attention to. Oh, you're pro-vaccine. All right, Trump. Well, just don't talk about it, and that's fine. I'll still go cheer at you for your rally, right? We can watch Joe Rogan literally talk to his guest, say something that's not true, have them look it up, and Jamie goes, "Oh, that's not true," and he'll be like, "Yeah, whatever," and all his fans go, "Yeah, Joe Rogan's right," right? Like that's the guy who's gonna go like, "Oh, me president."
Yeah, which when I think back, 25 years when I was watching news radio, he was like 6th on the list of people that I thought might one day run for president. I'm still shocked that Andy Dick never ran for president at any point. But in any case, I think that sort of that issue, it's for years there was, where's the left-leaning Rush Limbaugh or any figure, and there never was one. There was a whole network called Air America, and when you think of the people that were on it and how it included Mark Maron, Janine Garofalo, Al Franken, it was as star-studded as those get. There's a great documentary about it. It didn't catch on because it doesn't energize in the same way as as Limbaugh and Hannity and any of those voices do. And yeah, I don't know that there is somebody like that.
So and there is. The thing is, it's not anywhere near on the scale of like a Rush Limbaugh. So I'm a big fan of Hassan Piker, who's a streamer on Twitch. He used to be on TYT, the Young Turks. He does a lot of political commentary. He streams pretty much every day. He has a huge audience, averages about 50,000 viewers. During the election cycle, he was up in the hundreds. He very firmly leftist. He's probably the largest. There's some other ones on YouTube, a couple other ones on Twitch.
David Pakman. Then,
these are like much larger, much smaller than anything of like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. These guys have just much larger audiences. They have bigger backers. Like you're never.
It's much easier to gather a following with fear.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And also too, people, when you serve the interest of corporations, they're going to give you money. When you're an anti-capitalist, a capitalist company is not going to invest in you to be on their radio network talking about how they shouldn't be exploiting labor. Like it's just not going to happen. So unfortunately,
you don't think that Nike wants to give money to an anti-capitalist candidate? That doesn't seem to be in their interest.
I mean, and also too, like it's a double-sided coin, because let's say you are right. You're a popular leftist person and you take this Nike deal so you can reach a larger audience, right? But then also now everyone on your left is like, how are you taking money from a company that makes money off slave labor? You're a hypocrite. You're a grifter.
I think that's Elizabeth Warren is the perfect example of that, because I think that the reason that she claims to be a capitalist is so that she does not, she does so she can still get any sort of like the backing that she needs, because she talks openly about how much running for office is just strictly financial game. But that's exactly what happened. And then even though she is a farther left, but everybody on the left attacks her for anything having to do with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're a true anti-capitalist or communist or any of these ists, you can't be a senator for as long as Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders. I mean, you have to understand that you're a part of a business, and money needs to be generated to keep you there. When we're talking about, go ahead, Nate.
I I don't know. I don't want to be a Bernie defender because there is stuff that I don't agree with him on, but I would not put him in the same capitalist boat as Pelosi because he has been outspoken about social safety nets and how our capitalist structure, I think his tenure there is more so because he's dedicated to what he believes needs to happen. Whereas I think Pelosi's is very obviously about her economic interests, even the way that she has, played stocks and how she has
Sure.
just when greeted with that criticism, just been like, yeah, no, I think it's fine. I don't think it should be illegal. Like, I don't know if I put them in the same boat, but
Yeah, no,
but
no. I
it's
mean, look,
definitely it's definitely a
there are,
career.
I mean, look, and
But
Bernie knows,
Elizabeth Warren is
and
is
yeah, and Bernie's a senator from Vermont, so he obviously can't have an anti-gun stance if he wants to get reelected. And look, he could very well actually believe that. That's not my point. My point is that if he were to believe it, he couldn't really get it out in the forefront of that issue. One of the things I was going to say, sort of, we were talking before, you listed Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, and those things, to bring it back to Limbaugh as the example. I mean, his listeners proudly called themselves ditto heads because the idea was, I believe everything that you believe. And as someone who produced a political talk show for radio for a number of years, it was with a comedian, it was with Dennis Miller. He was conservative on a number of issues, but he was also very liberal on social issues. So that hurt the show in a lot of ways. There were stations that were like, yeah, but but gay marriage is wrong. You should understand that. He's like, I don't know. I went to my friend's wedding, two men got married and I was so happy for them. I'm not allowed to be happy for them. And kind of like the corporate side of that doesn't want to hear that. They don't want to hear you deviate from these things. And it was it was sort of like a lot of dealing with that. You were on a network with all these people that had the same talking points, and this was a show that might have had some of them, but you didn't have all of them. So it's very hard to find that. And I think that that's the difference with, the I don't know. I mean, when you think of like the truly outspoken left-leaning politicians, probably don't agree with everything that they say. People who like Bill Maher will always hear there's like drug companies. There's always stuff that he goes like a little bit too far. And you're like, oh, well, I liked a lot of what he said, but now he sounds crazy. So I don't know who those figures are, but Nate, it was very easy to rattle off a bunch of conservatives who I don't think Ben Shapiro has any interest in running for any kind of office, but he certainly could endorse someone who does.
I could definitely see him, 20 years from now being like, all right, I have decided it is time. I am going to be the president of the United States.
Yeah.
I would like to imagine a world where that doesn't exist, but unfortunately, my brain doesn't work that way.
No, I mean, look, I think that
I also never thought that Donald Trump would be president.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, he was running for president, and I thought he was never going to be president. It was November of 2016.
He was winning, and I thought he wasn't going to be.
Yeah, no, he got sworn in, and I still didn't think. I was like the reverse QAnon. I was like
just waiting for Ashton Kutcher to hop out and be like, "Ha, we punked you all, America!"
And yet, Christian, you did not storm the Capitol.
No, but that was just because I didn't have enough frequent flyer miles.
Okay.
That was the only reason why. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other narrative that we can talk about as the year continues, is how January 6th will be positioned. Just keep waiting to see who else comes out in relation to that. In terms of who did what on that day and the days leading up to it.
But as far as all of these, the political commentators that we're talking about, is that most people who on the left and the right, whoever they're following, one of our biggest problems is that people cannot decipher between what is news and what is opinion. And Absolutely. They look to commentators, opinion, hosts that host solely opinion shows, and they look to that as their news. And so, if we were able to establish just our base, understanding of critical thinking, being presented with information, and then look at it through your own lens, and then, take that to an opinion, then go watch your host who you largely agree with, then that would leave a little bit more room for disagreeing. But when we're watching these people, if somebody's going to these hosts solely for representing the news, it's so much. That's when they say something slightly, that doesn't in line with their views, that leads to just so much more. It makes their heads explode, because they're just like, wait, the way that I understood this situation is no longer the way that it is, and so now it's that's
and you have a lot of people who, when you think back a few years, that they still got the majority of their information from the Daily Show. I'm thinking of the Jon Stewart Daily Show. Not that you can't still get too much information from shows like that, and like John Oliver, and look, I mean, those are comedy shows that you're taking your information from, so it is supposed to be slanted in a very specific way. And Tucker Carlson, you can think what you want about him, but that is an opinion show. It is designed to entertain people. It is I'm sure it's also designed to
wears
scare
a
people.
bow tie.
Does he still wear it
in the country? He doesn't.
Does he still wear the bow tie? I thought he had gotten away from it. I'm pretty sure he'd gotten away from it.
Fun of him too much. Unfortunately, I watch a lot of Tucker Carlson just to know your enemy kind of stuff. So I have a theory about this.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And I think all of this issue stems from somewhere along the way, we completely lost the line between news and entertainment. And there is a very, very, very small subsection of what we now refer to as news that is actually just factual reporting. 95% of it, random made up statistic, is opinion pieces. So for a lot of people, they don't even delineate the difference between the two. They've been raised on opinion news their whole life. So all they know is, this person tells me this. Yes, I agree with you. There's no critical thinking applied. There's no, well, let me check that source and see where that source came from. There's no, well, I'm not sure if I agree with you. Let me logic it out. There's no critical thinking of that is applied. Another big issue that we have, we don't teach media literacy. We don't teach kids to be able to say, is this real? Is this a person a reputable writer? What have they written before? Who is publishing this? Who funds the publisher? All of these things are questions that need to be considered, consciously or subconsciously, when you're reviewing information. And we are not equipping a lot of people to have these tools. So they see stuff, it agrees with what they already believe in or what they may have been raised in. And so they just go, yes, that's true.
Teach critical media theory in schools.
Yeah, but I mean, look, and that is certainly a nonpartisan attribute. The number of like crazy headlines that I see from no, not your thing. What I'm saying, it makes perfect sense. But I mean, the number of times that people share, I'm using the air quotes of news, and it's from a site like Occupy Democrats, or I'm just using them as an example because the name very clearly says what it is. It's not even so much about them, and it's like, and then I guess the way to like post anything that's remotely controversial is to just put makes you think ... And then they're not actually saying what they really think about it. Maybe I've seen that as recently as this week on Facebook. And it was for something really crazy, by the way. But anyway, I mean,
even LeBron did it with his post. So
yeah. So and yeah, I mean, just I don't know. I guess you should teach kids young. When I was a kid, I would watch Sesame Street, and Kermit the Frog would do Sesame Street news. He's still the only one I believe on anything. And so far, that's never led me astray. Kermit has yet to lie to me, whereas everyone else,
lots of integrity.
Yeah,
I say it is easy being green.
You know what? That's it's very anti-capitalist of you. Keith's dad says, I think Elizabeth Warren needs to slide into obscurity. Same with Bernie Sanders. Keith's dad says Democrats need more politicians like Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know that much about her, but boy, did they have it in for her. She definitely pissed off the wrong people, maybe rightly so. I really don't know that much about her, but I definitely agree that she fits a demographic that you don't see enough politicians on either side. Anyone who's younger, female, any sort of non-white ethnicity, you don't see that very much. I mean, to think that we ever had Barack Obama as president feels like, well, that must have not really happened. I must just remember that because that's not what presidents look like. And let's see.
We need an office age limit. When you hit 70,
yeah,
I don't care. You're out. You're not going to be here long enough for the stuff that you're about to do to take into effect or have to deal with the consequences. You're out. Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we put a bunch of kids in, but like I think 35 to 70.
That's a big window. That's fine.
That's a perfectly fine window. Yeah. And by the way,
no one should be a politician for longer than 30 years also.
Yeah. Now that I'm almost 46, 35 sounds a little young, but I'll allow it. I think 35 is fine. If there's the right 35-year-old out there to be president, that's fine. I got no problem.
If it was up to me, I'd say 15. Just let the kids have it. Anarchy.
Yeah. Keith's
dad
agrees.
They turn 30 and they're like, oh damn, I made this mess.
Keith's dad agrees with Tamra and then talks about how newspapers in the 1900s were very much the same way. Owners of newspapers were very powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest movie of all time is about one of them. And obviously, I'm talking about The Muppets Take Manhattan. But in any case, yeah, I think that, there is a little bit more transparency now in terms of, when you're watching something on, an NBC related network, they mention, that like clearly this is an advertisement. When ABC is telling you all the new exciting things that are going to be on Disney Plus and it's on Good Morning America, which is essentially a news show. And then they have to be like, oh yeah. And the Walt Disney Company is a parent company, so it's like, we get that stuff, but still people, look, I take that as very important news. What's going to be on Disney Plus later this year. It's probably what I'm more excited about than the actual news, but I think that real information doesn't sell. And that's the problem. It's you have a,
have you guys seen Don't Look Up?
I have not seen it yet. No.
Oh, you got to watch it. So good.
It was good.
And I feel like people know that people we're talking about the echo chamber. Clearly you have a certain group of people that gravitated towards Fox News. You have people on the left going towards MSNBC, and it would have been great if CNN had decided to carve out somewhere in the middle of the road that's actual information, but then no one, even less people would watch them than watch it now. So I don't know how you do that, because it's like there's nowhere that you can get information and be like, yeah, I feel like this is unbiased in every way,
So I think for a lot of people, the reason why they like these commentators and personalities is because even though it may not necessarily be true, it appears to be more personal. Like, this is a person I like, this is what they believe in, and they're telling me, so I believe it, as opposed to CNN is big corporate media news, not mentioning all of the backers that Ben Shapiro has, and that he owns the Daily Wire and all his stuff, like but all that viewer sees is, oh look, it's Ben telling me this, I like Ben, so I think that's a big reason why a lot of these smaller, which are not really that small names, I should say, more personal news delivery vehicles, I think have become more popular.
It's the same way that entertainment is so like niche at this point. You can have the podcast that you subscribe to the Patreon to get the extra episode a week for your favorite comedian. So, and you're spending multiple hours a week listening to something that most Americans don't even know exists, and I think that information news really kind of comes at you the same way, because you're talking about Ben Shapiro. I think his service is subscription. I know Steven Crowder's show is subscription. So a lot of these things you have to pay to actually get. So you can also get away with a lot more when you're dealing with a private subscriber base, And I wanted to bring this in before we wrap up. Storage Yard Resident says, just wait until you're 70 and see what your opinion is. So yeah, when I'm actually 70, I might think that the only people who should be president are between 60 and 80. So you're absolutely right. It's always shifting in that way. Nate, you and I were trading messages earlier today, and one of the things that you mentioned was Dan Crenshaw, the Republican, who, we can talk about. You can always talk about somebody's service, what they did before they were an elected official. But he certainly has a name for himself, and apparently that includes fighting with a 10-year-old girl now, right?
This was at the top of my newsfeed today. Most interesting story I have read. Yeah. If you haven't seen the video, it's on Twitter. The short version is he gave a quote on some podcast talking about archetypes for superheroes, and the implication of the quote is that Jesus is imaginary, and so this child is asking him by reading his quote back to him, like, this doesn't make sense to me, like, is he real, is he not real, like, what do you and he replies, you just put a period after Jesus and don't ever question my faith. And he just owns this 10-year-old girl. And the crowd starts booing and starts shouting stuff at him. Some guy starts shouting, "Let's go, Brandon," because that's how their brain works.
Well, anytime there's a loud noise, people
are yelling, "Let's go, Brandon."
Yeah.
And it's just I mean, it's kind of funny. I do feel a little bit bad for the girl. It's kind of funny. This is not good for him. Like, he already is kind of like flip-flops between opinion, good and bad with among his people, but this is not good. You can't be super rude to little girls,
Who is this?
So Dan Crenshaw, you probably know him for
I'm gonna Google
his feud with Pete Davidson a few years ago. He has an eye patch because he lost an eye in his service.
So actually, funny story. So that the only time that Hassan Piker, our leftist commentator, got major coverage was when he got banned off Twitch. He had a famous called the 9/11 incident, where he was watching a video of Dan Crenshaw on Joe Rogan. They were talking about 9/11, and he said, America deserved 9/11, referring to the things that they did to create those military groups that ended up striking us back with our own weapons, right? But he got banned because he was talking about Dan Crenshaw and said stuff about his eye and the Mujahideen and all this stuff I won't repeat. And that went huge of like, oh, he's disrespecting a veteran, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. So Dan has he took that, and along with the Pete Davidson situation, has tried to carve out this own little like stardom for himself within the Republican Party. Last year he had a bunch of campaign ads positioning himself as like an Avenger, jumping out of a plane, going to save America. It was some of the funniest things I've ever seen. But he obviously was trying to drum up some type of support here, and I don't think that it's really gonna work out well for him. The reception online has been not good from people on the left and people on the right as well.
Yeah, I mean, typically I would say it's something about Texas, because it's almost like he's everything that Ted Cruz wishes he could be,
Absolutely.
And none of which that he is. But
he's the wind beneath Ted Cruz's wings.
Yeah, I actually, I read the story after you had mentioned it, because I had seen something about it, but I didn't really know. And it's just to imagine if he had owned that 10-year-old girl and everybody stood up and applauded, and been like, yeah.
but that's what's wild is he goes on to make this really lame excuse of like, don't question my faith, and of course I believe, yada yada. And the girl, very smart girl, says, well, you can say one thing here and another thing on the podcast, and I forget, he says some dumb other response, like, I believe in my faith or whatever, and people do actually end up applauding him in the end. That's what's so wild. He goes from boos to applause. Like the synapses are firing very slowly.
Yeah. And what that tells me is that his faith probably isn't that strong. That the fact that he was so defensive about it.
I think most of us adults or people that really follow politics know that almost all of these politicians do not really espouse the faith that they purport to. But I especially Dan Crenshaw, even if he is a Christian, I would not be surprised that it's a very, very minimal part of his life and not something he really bases all his decisions around. But you can never admit that, especially not in Texas.
No, especially not in Texas. Let's leave it there. I know we went a little long, but we'd been away for a while, and we had so many great people jumping in the chat. We appreciate all of that. We will be back next week for more fun. Nate, if people want to keep in touch with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Friendster, MySpace, all that stuff. Dog Like Nate with 2 G's.
And Tamra, I know that you're all about the TikTok, and where can people find you on there?
You can find me at Hey Tamra, also on Instagram.
Oh, all right. So IG's making a comeback. All right, I like it.
IG is making a comeback because of the fact that IG is now trying to be TikTok.
Oh, nice.
They've changed their algorithm, so I did have something. I did have something go viral on IG and gained some followers. So I guess that's possible again now that they're trying to be TikTok.
Yeah, well, that's anything that follows the TikTok model. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. Please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. I know that this show is jumps around the schedule a little bit, and we were gone for a while. So if you subscribe, you'll always know when we're going live, and you'll also find our other show, Marvel Movie Talk, and of course the titular Blattcast, BLADTCAST, clocking in at almost 475 episodes now. So plenty of content to find and tide you over. And yes, we will be talking about the Moon Knight trailer on Marvel Movie Talk tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. So please join us then. Thanks again to everyone on the show, in the chat, and we'll see you next time.